I want to take that out of clinics, out of labs, and really create a solution that everyone can use at home. Obviously nowadays a lot of us have these smartwatches that can track sleep already, but obviously they have limitations where you can play different tones, different sounds.
It's super interesting.
During sleep, which for example enhances the amount of slow wave or deep sleep that you get, which is for recovery and memory processes, for example.
Welcome, everyone, to the IDUN Technologies podcast, our first podcast of 2022. I'm joined today by Michel, our head neuroscientist. Welcome, Michel.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to have this talk with you.
And this talk today is actually all about sleep technology, and brain-computer interfaces. Quick recap, IDUN Technologies is a company that develops in-ear EEG electrodes and a brain-computer interface and full-stack product. And Michel here just joined the company when?
Last year in September, so 2021. But I actually have a little bit longer history with IDUN. So actually already 2.5 years ago, 2019, right after my PhD, I joined IDUN for, I think it was 3 or 4 months. And back then my position was called a neurosensing engineer, which I think is a made-up word from our co-founders Severin and Simon. But it actually was quite a good fit, quite a good match to describe what I actually was doing, because I was really in the intersection between neuroscience and engineering back then.
And you're also coming from the ETH Zurich research community area, like many of us at IDUN. Why are you a neuroscientist?
I'm a neuroscientist because I am fascinated by the brain. So my background is in psychology. I studied psychology at the University of Zurich, and basically back when I studied psychology there in Zurich, at the master's level, we had to choose between different directions where we wanted to go. And one of them was called cognitive neuroscience and neuropsychology. And basically that was the track that I chose based on many very interesting courses that I had during my bachelor's, and really got fascinated in how the brain works, and also all the neuroscience methods that are out there. And I really wanted to learn more about that, and I was really fascinated. I think that was the first time when I was really intrinsically interested in a topic that I really wanted to educate myself a bit further. And then during my master's, I learned a lot, cognitive neuroscience, how the brain works, all the methods. Of course, I also did a couple of research internships at various places. And at some point it was clear that to even get a deeper knowledge and learn more about the brain, you have to stay in academia a bit longer, and try and do your own research, try and investigate your own things. And that's why I ended up doing a PhD, and then I actually switched to ETH Zurich.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time as well in the startup world, because there are many neurotech startups, and so when I talk to people online or sometimes in conferences, they're amazed that it's possible to do neuroscience outside of the research, the academic sphere.
Yeah, I hope it's getting more and more like that, but it's definitely still a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Switzerland, there aren't many neurotech companies. It's probably a bit different in the US. I think there you have many more opportunities. Also, the big tech companies want to go a little bit more into discover into that space. But no, I definitely learned after my PhD that it's still a challenge to switch from, if you do neuroscience from academia to industry.
Yeah.
There's just, especially with the field of neuroscience that I basically worked with, which was EEG. There you really don't have a lot of industry positions and companies that really work in that field.
Well, that brings up one question. Sometimes you don't have a lot of companies because we don't know what to do with the technology that's been developed in the laboratory. And now we're in the interesting position of building value propositions and applications around two areas in IDUN, hearing health, but also sleep health and sleep technology, which is where you're really focusing a lot of time right now, as I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Sleep, I would say, is probably the biggest topic that we're working on currently. I think it's something that is something that everybody understands. Everybody knows how important sleep is.
Do we? How did you sleep last night?
Very poorly, actually.
Ah.
According to my watch that tracks my sleep.
I have one of those as well, actually. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we've had this explosion of wearable sensors, watches, motion sensors. They're cheap. Everyone can wear them. One question is, what do we do with that information? How does it actually help us? Does that help us?
Yeah.
And how do you what's the impact you want to make in sleep right now with neurotech?
I think first and foremost, I want to take the expensive and bulky and just complicated solution that we have right now when it comes to sleep monitoring with EEG, so really your brain activity during sleep. I want to take that out of clinics, out of labs, and really create a solution that everyone can use at home. Where our solution, I think the in-ear EEG Guardian that we developed is the perfect example for such a solution, where it's an out-of-the-box solution. Everyone can use it. You don't need a trained professional to set it up. I mean, the whole setup is you just put in earphones in your ear, and that's basically it. And when you compare that to the gold standard EEG, which is, or the polysomnography that is used in sleep research, I mean, there you have a setup time of up to an hour, many different electrodes, different positions on your scalp, under your chin, around your eyes. You also have electrodes attached to your chest.
But I imagine there's also a limit to what we can do at the ear. I mean, do you think we can replace the entire system, or do you think we can have scenarios where you have still the very high resolution laboratory setups, but I always wonder, what does this mean for users, for people, if we can have this more mobile system? How is this really going to impact their lives or treatment journeys, actually?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we are all aware that we will never replace a device that has dozens of channels at different locations of on your body, basically. We do have, of course, limitations when we measure in-ear EEG, However, I think the advantages that we provide with our device, they are very clear to the end user when it comes to long-term monitoring. So it's not just going for one night into a clinic, but if you want to monitor someone for several nights in a row, then instead of going to the clinic or to the Sleep Research Institute every time, you can just do that at home.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, like the ability to have more longitudinal data over longer time periods.
Exactly. And I think that's also the big plus, one of the biggest plus that I see with our device, with our form factor, that basically as soon as we have the hardware that enables us to do that, we can monitor brain activity 24 hours a day, right? It's not just during sleep, it's also during daytime. And I think this is a big advantage also compared to the current gold standard, where no one wants to walk around during the day with all these cables coming from the head, with all the gel in your hair. It's first of all, it looks weird, but it's also getting uncomfortable pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks weird as I mean, it's strange, or it's weird to say it looks weird, and like we can't do stuff only because of the way it looks, but that's basically everything in society. I mean, if it's not acceptable.
Absolutely. You know, maybe at one point in 100 years, we all have cables coming from our heads, and this will look like just the newest hairstyle, and it's going to be socially acceptable, and everyone is okay with that. Who knows? But we're definitely not there yet. But yeah, what I mentioned before, I think it's really not just the way it looks; it's also the way it feels. So the gold cup electrodes, basically, that you put on your head, you use a lot of gel to fixate it and to get a good contact to the skin. That dries out over time, and yeah, that can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and also if you look at brain-computer interface technology in general, the landscape in 2022, we now have a lot of different options, from invasive soft electrodes, invasive hard electrodes. They actually have to go through a bit of surgery to implant them. Then the gold standard, which works, but it's cumbersome to put on. So with the technology we're developing here, the idea is we would have ear electrodes, which would be integrated into earbud devices, which can then very easily come into your ear. And it would be as invasive as an earbud, for example. But when we're talking about things like sleep, everybody sleeps. If you don't sleep, you die. Some people say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. There's this culture also about the idea of working or feeling exhausted, which can actually be a measure for how well or how much you think you've been working. And if you connect that with achievements in life, then you can sort of create this negative feedback loop of thinking you're advancing because you're tired and worn out. I do that quite often. Sometimes I'm trying to change it. Like, how do you think we can positively impact those types of cycles in society with this tech?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I also feel that with myself very often, that sometimes it's kind of like an honor badge to say how little sleep you got last night, or how stressed out you are at work because you're so busy and you're so important and you're so ambitious and you achieve so much, and that's why it's kind of it feels weird if someone asks you, hey, how are you feeling, to say, hey, I'm very well, I'm well rested, I'm not stressed out. I think people will think, well, you're just a lazy person then.
Do you think that's like a cultural thing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think so, yeah. It's probably not that pronounced in Switzerland as in other places, I think, but
yeah, the Swiss society.
yeah.
I mean, I came from the U.S. originally, and I feel like there's a relatively well balanced method of working in society in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to take more vacations this year to be in better balance with the rest of my colleagues.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. But yeah, what you mentioned before, how can we basically break that cycle? So first of all, I think what is very clear, we cannot improve something that we cannot measure. Obviously, nowadays, a lot of us have these smartwatches that can track sleep already, but obviously they have limitations. I mean, they are already quite advanced, I have to say, and I personally use these sleep scores, sleep metrics already to kind of know when I need to improve things, when I need to maybe step back a little bit, or just go to bed a bit earlier. Basically, I think that's one of the easiest things you can do. So yeah, measuring is the one thing, and then the next thing is what can you actually do with your data, or with your measurements. And there I really hope that with our device, as I mentioned before, when we not just track brain activity during sleep but also during day, that we learn very, very interesting and intriguing things about how the brain works and how sleep deprivation impacts our daily performance, for example, attention or memory performance, stuff like that. When we could really link these directly together without really with long-term monitoring, without having people coming to labs and putting on EEG devices.
I think like closing that loop, having some type of intervention.
Exactly.
Is really one of the ways that we can help to impact the culture.
Yeah. So just a quick side note there. I think there are already a lot of companies that really try and get into this area of sleep improvement, which I think is very promising, because as we talked about before, sleep is very important to us. There is tons of research what bad influences poor sleep have.
Well, and it's also a question, is the fact that you're sleeping poorly leading to different disorders, or are they essentially symptoms and ways to track different disorders? Like Alzheimer's, for example, we see studies coming out that say this person is at higher risk because they had less than 6 hours of sleep per night.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Sometimes it's difficult to make or see causalities from correlations or associations. But I think when it comes to sleep, I think there is already a lot of research out there that really shows very clearly that your lack of sleep, that this has a direct, or this is really the cause of a lot of things that can go wrong. For example, your immune system is weakened when we sleep less. You have attentional problems. For example, people are more prone to get into car accidents if they sleep less. There are mood disorders. Again, there is a bit difficult to say which is it the chicken or the egg, which comes first. But there's definitely also research that shows the causality from poor sleep to being in a bad mood, and yeah, of course, if this is chronic, it can be much more severe.
So what do you see as the next steps in 2022? Where do we go from here with sleep?
First of all, we need the tracking, the sleep tracking. We have it now on our wrist. I think we can gain much more information if we add EEG measurements. So, for example, if we add, now the unicorn just flew away.
Well, hopefully that's not foreshadowing the company trajectory.
Definitely not. Yeah, so I really think in-ear EEG, I mean EEG in general can you can gain a lot of information, additional information about your sleep. In-ear EEG, of course, because we do it and we see the advantage over other forms of EEG. And then after that, after we can measure it and you know, identify the right biomarkers, we can start and, you know, improve things. For example, with brain stimulation in various forms. There's of course deep brain stimulation, which is currently not very scalable because you need the surgery. But there are other forms, for example, sensory stimulation, where you can play different tones, different sounds.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, during sleep, which, for example, enhances the amount of slow wave or deep sleep that you get, which is for recovery and memory processes, for example.
Yeah,
super important.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing how we can bring this type of sleep tracking technology that's comparable to the gold standard into consumer medical, and maybe in the future also medical products. And yeah, so I think it's really interesting to see like the impact you've had since you've been here. I mean, you helped to essentially establish the sleep validation studies that we're doing in-house, collaboration with academic institutions, and your results will be presented in the World Sleep Congress in Rome in March, actually in less than a month.
Yeah.
So we're really interested also to see like the feedback that comes from the academic world.
Yeah.
Because actually these are the most difficult people to convince. You're also very skeptical when it comes to results, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think when we go with our results to the academic research community, I think it's always important to mention, hey, don't be scared. We don't wanna replace gold standard PSG, at least not quite yet.
Yeah.
But I think for us, I think it's very obvious what the advantages can be, what additional things, use cases you can actually do with in-ear EEG, with the lightweight mobile solution. And I think we just have to promote that idea a bit stronger, and not just you know, showing, hey, we have a very high correlation between the sleep scorings of a PSG system and the sleep scorings with our system. I think you will always this will always cause skepticism, which in research is, I mean, it's a good thing to be skeptical.
For sure, because
to
at the end of the day,
everything.
I mean, if you're not skeptical, then you don't create the best type of product, I would say.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's essentially where we are at IDUN and sleep technology. Michel is working hard, creating amazing results on validation between gold standard and in-ear PSG systems. We're opening up, sharing our results to the world, looking forward to feedback from you, whether you're a researcher working in product development or just interested in sleep in general. We'd love to hear your feedback on these types of systems. And our motto for 2021 was make it happen in 2021. What do you think our motto should be for 2022?
Really make it happen.
Really make it happen. Taking IDUN brain-computer interfaces to the next level. Yeah, sounds excellent.
Cool.
So thank you all for joining us. Perhaps next time we will not be wearing masks in the office because of different lifting COVID restrictions in Switzerland, but we have to stay tuned and see what happens. Thank you, Michel, for joining us today, sharing your perspective on sleep in the world, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, tschüss.